Okay, we're going to talk a little bit about what can damage and improve a communication climate, and that is trust and lying. So, nothing more easily strengthens a communication climate than trust, and nothing damages it more than lying. So, there are a couple of terms to define here. First is that when people feel trust or deception in relationships, it manifests in an attachment theory. And attachment is how, again, remember when we talked about self and we talked about all the different types of parenting that you can have, like anxious, ambivalent, and secure, that transfers over into the way that you attach to relationships. So, how you were loved and parented and cared for as a kid often manifests itself again in how you love and care for other people. And we talked about that a lot when we talked about self. There are three types of attachment styles: secure, anxious, ambivalent, and avoidant. And in secure relationships, you're able to attach with confidence. There's not a lot of distrust in the relationship. You feel like the person is being honest with you. You're secure in the relationship and feel like, you care about them and they care about you. In anxious, ambivalent relationships, you're constantly worried. There's a high climate of distrust. So you're constantly worried that the person is not telling the truth, or that they're not being loyal to you. And so you have to seek out a lot of assurances from the other person, and the other person in your relationship will often say, "Don't you trust me?" Right? That's part of the sign that maybe you're showing some anxious, ambivalent tendencies in a relationship. And then the last one is avoidant. And avoidant relationships are relationships where the person is so scared that there's going to be dishonesty and a lack of trust, that they'll avoid relationships altogether, and they'll avoid the situations where they might have one. So your goal is to have secure relationships, and sometimes you have to train yourself and teach yourself to trust and to have that type of relationship. When it comes to trust, the best way to build trust in a relationship is self-disclosure. So sharing and being vulnerable. We talked about that with Brene Brown, and the idea of kind of wholeheartedly embracing the person that you're with and sharing with them and asking for things that you need. And then you also cooperate, avoid suspicious activity, and reciprocate trust. And that will really build a healthy climate for you in a relationship. So those are sort of the three things to really build that trusting climate. Of course, there is an element of deception that can come into relationships, and that will really impact the climate. The definition of deception, make sure you write this one down, is intentionally managing verbal or nonverbal messages so that the receiver will believe and understand something that the speaker knows to be false. So there's some important words there. You're intentionally mismanaging or managing your verbals or nonverbals so that you will convey a certain idea. And you know that they're going to believe something that isn't true. Often, we make mistakes in relationships, but the intention is what really matters when it comes to contributing to a negative climate. If the intention is to deceive, then that's lying. There are, according to the text, 5 types of lies. Make sure that you write these down. The first is equivocation, and this means where you just make unclear statements, or you evade, or you change the subject. So when someone asks you a question, you just avoid or evade or answer ambiguously. The second is concealment. So you just take out certain parts of the information to deceive, and conceal or lie, like omission, right? A lie of omission. Sometimes we exaggerate. Everybody does this. We stretch the truth a little, spice up a story, make ourselves look better, but it is a form of lies and lying. Sometimes we understate, so we downplay. So we'll be like, oh, we got into a little trouble, nothing too serious, when really it is serious. We just don't want to be truthful about that. And then the last one, the fifth one, is lie. It's just outright dishonesty, where we are completely intentionally telling something that isn't true. There is a sixth type that isn't considered lying, but is equally kind of dangerous. It's benevolent lies. And this is telling someone something that you're telling them to build their self-esteem, You have to be careful with these, right? You have to balance the need to not hurt someone's feelings, but also you don't want them to be deluded into believing something about themselves that isn't true. So if somebody tells you, how do you like my haircut? And it's terrible, but you lie, and eventually they realize it's terrible and they realize that you lied, that can be really damaging to a relationship. So you have to really balance the need to protect someone's feelings and also the need to tell the truth. And those are kind of a case by case decision, but they're considered a type of lying. They kind of talk about what are our motives for lying, and then often if we're lying for somebody else, we seem to think that's a little bit more noble sometimes, like when you're trying to protect a partner or someone in a relationship. And really, those that matter to us the most, family members, close friends, or romantic partners, are the ones whose lies can hurt us the most, because you've been vulnerable with those people and you've come to trust them. And so those are the lies that can hurt the most. People can't hurt someone that doesn't matter to them, right? So in a deep way. So if you're hurt by someone, it means that there are feelings and concern there, and that you've let yourself be vulnerable to that. But unfortunately, it also, you run the risk of being hurt. So we have to know that those are the people that can hurt us the most, but there's also this reward of this climate of trust if we let them in, and trust them. So that finishes our lecture on climate. You're going to do a couple more activities with lying before you submit the assignment, but that's all the content for climate.